Hello and welcome to Commoner's Crafts, a channel where I will show you how to craft simple and affordable terrain for your tabletop games. In this video, we're going to make a Tudor style house. Let's take a look. I start by using a ruler to mark out on a piece of cardboard what I want to cut out. I want to cut out two smaller pieces, and the way I do this is by cutting them out. I leave a little bit of a lip so I can use it to attach it to the larger pieces easier. I use my knife to cut into the cardboard, but I don't cut completely through, so I can fold it a little bit, and this way it's gonna be easier to attach it to the larger pieces when I glue them. For the larger walls and the roof, I cut out one big piece of cardboard. What I do is I measure out every piece and then I cut through, but not completely, just like the smaller ones, so it will be easier to handle. And when you glue it all together, you don't have to fiddle around so much to get it all to stick together. When that's done, you'll have a piece that looks kind of like this. It's gonna be way easier to attach it to the smaller pieces and to stick it together. Now we can start by gluing all the pieces we cut out together, and the way I do this is I use a combination of PVA and super glue. The super glue holds immediately, but the PVA is gonna make sure it's gonna be a bond that lasts longer. The triangle pieces, it might have been easier to include them in the side pieces already, but I find it's quite annoying to measure it out, so I just do it like this. It's easier and it takes less time. After you've done all that, you can leave it to dry, and you can start by preparing the shingles for the roof. I use some cardstock from a pizza box. It's perfect size, it's free as well, and I measure out these small strips, 2 centimeters long, to prepare them all for cutting out shingles later. You could measure these, but I don't do it, it takes too long, so just cut them out to a random size. It gives a more chaotic and random look, and I think it looks quite cool in the end. Just don't cut all the way through, so it's easier to attach them in strips and you don't have to lay them all individually. When you've done all that, you can make it even look better by cutting out some random pieces that are shorter than the rest, and then once you've done that, you can like twist them around a little bit so it doesn't look as uniform. The cardboard building should be completely dry by now, and you can start by adding the wooden planks. I use coffee stir sticks to do this. It's again one of those materials that's either completely free, you can go around asking your local coffee stores to get some, or you can buy them in bulk at a craft store for very cheap. lower part of the building I add one long horizontal strip, so I can add all these vertical strips underneath, so it looks like the building has a base that's entirely made of wood or reinforced by wood. I have no idea if this is in any way realistic, but you know, it's a fantasy building. It looks quite cool. To get the right scale for the door, I just take a miniature and I use a pencil to mark the size that looks kind of decent for this scale of miniature, and I add some more coffee stir sticks just in a straight pattern, no curvature here. I'm gonna add some more cardstock later to create a metal framing for the door. Take all the strips you made for shingles and cut them to size. I use a combination of hot glue and PVA glue to attach it. It's way easier and faster, and that way you don't have to wait, and the PVA glue again creates a stronger bond in the long run. Just make sure they overlap a little bit so it doesn't look like it's all strips, it looks like it's individual singles. I cut some coffee stir sticks in two to make a frame for the window. I just make a very basic frame, just a rectangle with two longer pieces on the top and two smaller pieces on the bottom. I'm not gonna cut it out, I'm gonna paint it so it looks like glass. Now we can finally start finishing up the walls. I aim for this kind of plaster stucco look, and the cheapest and easiest way that I found to achieve this is to just put some PVA glue on it, paint it on with like a crappy brush, and then add like very fine sand. This is from a bag of aquarium sand that I once bought. It cost me I think like €5 or something, and it's gonna last you a lifetime. To make the door, I cut out 3mm strips of the same cardstock as the shingles. I add them to the sides, the top, and then for the hinges I cut out triangles and add them in. I don't measure this, just where it looks nice. And for the door handle I found a small piece, like a bit from a miniature kit, You can use a circle of cardstock, anything that looks kind of like a door handle is gonna be fine. Once everything is completely dry, you can prime your building. I use a gray spray paint primer. It's a very cheap one I bought at a hardware store, but you can do it with a brush as well, with some craft paint. It doesn't really matter, this is just faster. The reason I chose a light gray primer is because I'm gonna paint all the wood with a contrast paint. The paint I'm using is Wildwood from Games Workshop, but you can use Army Paint or any speed paint will work. It's just very fast. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's gonna last you for a lot of builds, and it's super easy to get a really good result. To paint the walls I use this beige sand colored paint. I would suggest not using any expensive miniature paints because it takes quite a lot of paint to paint everything, and it doesn't really matter to get a smooth finish, so just any sandy paints will do fine. For painting the roof, I mix this black and red color together, about 3 parts red and 1 part black. Mix it all together, add a little bit of water, and then you'll probably need a couple coats to get good coverage with this. Paint the windows with a dark green color. I use a miniature paint for this because it has higher pigmentation, which means it's gonna have a better finish, and I'm gonna add some glossy varnish later to make it really look like a window. All the metal parts of the door get a coat of lead belcher. This is a Games Workshop paint, but you can use any standard gunmetal paint from any brand. Just give it probably 2 coats to give it good coverage. With all the base coats done, we can start by adding washes to the build. I think this is a very satisfying part of the process. It brings your whole build together. I thinned down some Agrax Earthshade and added to all the plaster pieces to give it a more weathered appearance. I add a bit of non-oil to the metal pieces, just unthinned straight out of the pot gives the best results. Now an even more satisfying part, we can start dry brushing all the wood and the roof as well. I use a kind of beige color and I just dry brush the entire wood pieces and the roof as well, just the same color. It gives a very nice result. This step is kinda optional, but it adds some more depth to the plaster. What I do is I thin down some sepia wash from Games Workshop with water, and I add it to all the places where the plaster meets the wood. After dry brushing the roof and the wood, it can leave a dusty look, and how I get rid of that is I have a reddish brown sepia ink. I add it to all the parts and it gives them more warmth and get completely rid of the dusty look. To give the plaster even more depth, I mixed the same color I used for painting it, mixed with some white, and dry brush it in the middle. A light dry brush of Iron Breaker or any silver paint that's lighter than the paint you used to give the metal parts some more depth. For the very last step, you can add some gloss varnish to the windows. This is gonna make it look a lot more reflective, and it's gonna help give that window look. And we're all done. As you can see, it's very easy to make, it costs almost nothing, and in an afternoon you could be able to make a small town of this. You can use them in your role-playing games, in your war games, skirmish games, anywhere where you need them. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, make sure you subscribe for more easy to make, cheap builds for all your tabletop needs. Take care.